Audience research is finding out who the audience is and what their likes and dislikes are. The audience are all put into different groups that suit them based on different categories. I have used audience research when I was making my music video to find out what sort of things appealed to my target audience. Audience data research is finding out the demographic profiles of your audience. Audience data research can be used as feedback on whether the advertisement is reaching out to the intended audience. Audience data is secondary research and quantitative resources. I would use the internet to try and find out as much information on the certain topic I need. I will use audience data in my chocolate bar advert. I will use this to find out what sort of things my target audience like and dislike. Audience profiling research is when you find out the profile of your audience so you can put your message across to the right people in the most effective way possible. Audience profiling is primary research and quantitative resources. I would use face-to-face interviews, questionnaires and surveys. This will allow me to get the best form of information I need. I used this during Live Day as I need to keep in mind what the audience wanted whilst making my idea. Demographic research is when you base your research on certain factors like age, race, gender, economic status, etc. Demographics is secondary research and qualitative resources. I would use the internet to try and find out what I need to know on my idea. I'll use demographics when researching my chocolate bar advertisement because I will need to analyse the statistics to find out what they like. Geodemographic research is the study and grouping of people in the geographical area according to what your research is for. Geodemographics is primary research and qualitative resource. I would use interviews, surveys and questionnaires. Geodemographics has been used when I was planning my music video as I had to research different styles and genres of my music videos to suit my target audience. Consumer behaviour is the study of when, how and where people buy a certain product. Consumer behaviour is primary research and qualitative resource. I would use observation and interviews. I will use consumer behaviour for my chocolate advert because I will need to buy and advertise a chocolate which used to be popular and make it new and interesting to my new target audience. Consumer attitudes is when you research what people like and dislike. It can affect an entire product. Consumer attitudes is primary research and qualitative resources. I would use surveys, observations and interviews. Consumer attitudes was used when making my music video. I had to be very cautious when thinking of what I should buy or add in the video. Audience awareness is when you research your target audience so you can know their specific likes and dislikes so you can target them specifically. Audience awareness is primary research and is also qualitative resource. I would use meetings and observations. Audience awareness will be used when I make my chocolate bar advert as I will put it on different websites like Blogger and YouTube to make sure that people see it. Market research is an organised effort to gather information about a certain product depending on what you need it for. I will use market research when creating my chocolate bar advert to see if there are similar chocolate bars to the one that I am making to make sure that I don't make my product too similar to someone else's. Product marketing is when you raise awareness for a new product. You can raise the awareness in many different ways. Product marketing is primary research and qualitative resources. I would use surveys and interviews. I will use product marketing when I make my documentary, as I want to know how to draw in my audience to make it interesting and appealing to them. Competition researching is finding out strengths and weaknesses, actions and activities of your competitors. Competition is primary and qualitative research. I would use observation and focus groups. I used this during Live Day as we had to find out about other magazine shows to find ways of making ours unique to our target audience. Competitor analysis is when you identify and evaluate your competitors' strategies to find out their strengths and weaknesses. Competitor analysis is primary research and qualitative resource. I would use observation, surveys and questionnaires. We used competitor analysis when making our music video to see if anyone else was making something similar to us. This was important so we could make sure that our idea was unique and original. Advertising placement is when you advertise your product in the best way possible. People will research how the target audience will find the advertisement most beneficial. Advertising placement is primary research and qualitative resource. I would use focus groups and questionnaires. I'm going to use this when I make my documentary, as I will want people to see it, so I will have to think of a good way to advertise it. Advertising effects is how the advertising will affect society and whether it's affecting society in a negative or a positive way. Advertising effects is secondary research and qualitative resource. I would use the internet to find photographs of relevant posters. I'm going to use this when making my chocolate bar advertisement, as I will need to look at other adverts to see what people like about my idea and how I can relate it to other people's without stopping mine from being original. Production research is when the producers will get researchers to gather information that is suitable for what they need it for. In future projects such as the chocolate bar advert, I will use production research to find out what my target audience is into and how I can make my product appeal to them. Content is what makes up the production. People research this to find out what would be best to put into their production. Content would be secondary research and qualitative resource. The techniques I would use are internet and books. I will use content researching when making my documentary to make sure that I have the correct content in my short documentary, so I know that the audience I'm aiming it at will like it. Viability is when you research something for your production to make sure that when you put it into practice, it will work properly. Viability is primary research and qualitative resource. The techniques I will use are observation and questionnaires. We used viability during Live Day as we put our ideas into practice, as we did a few practice runs first before the actual run through. Placement media is when they use different types of media to promote the product for a business. Placement media would be secondary research and quantitative resources. The techniques I will use are books and the internet. I will use this when making my documentary, as I look at the other people's documentaries and see how theirs appeals to their audience, and I can do the same. Finance is when you look at what you need to spend your money on and you find useful ways of making the most of how much you have to spend. Finance would be primary research and quantitative resource. The techniques I will use are observation and interviews. I have used this when making my music video, as I had to make a list of what we needed to buy and how much we had to spend. Costs are important, so you know how much each thing costs, so you know how much to spend on each item and whether something would need more money spent on it. Cost would be primary research and quantitative resources. Techniques I will use are observation and questionnaires. I'm going to use this in my chocolate bar advert, as I will need to see how much other chocolate bars cost and how much I would consider pricing mine at. Technological resources is researching what you would need technological-wise for your production. People would research into it to find out what you would need on each section of filming. Technological resources would be secondary research and qualitative resources. The techniques I would use are the internet. I would use this when I made my music video, as I needed to edit what I filmed to make sure that what I had filmed was putting together nicely. Personnel would be a group or team of people working for the company, helping within research. The more personnel you have, the more things you can research. Personnel would be primary research and qualitative resources. The techniques I will use are focus groups. I use this when researching jobs to get a better understanding with it. Locations is when you research what you will need, how long you will need it for, and if you can use the location for free. Locations would be secondary research and qualitative resources. The techniques I will use are surveys and questionnaires. I did this when I was filming my music video, as I had to find the best place to film, so I had to research different places.